Every local legend always encloses a real context, striking stories that have been passed from generation to generation. But here I'm going to tell you the most moving of them all. And I will do it exactly as the events occurred. Drop whatever you're doing and get the tissues ready. Because you're going to cry, and stay with me until the end, because I promise you I won't let you down, because I am the documentalista, and this is the legend of Lucifer and the good slave. Marian was 15 years old and had been left alone in the cage of that slave market. It was in the fall of the White Flakes. No one had bought her because she was visibly sick, weak, and pregnant. That day, the cheapest slave had cost 40 payments, and they gave them for a toothless old man. However, before closing, and for 12 miserable payments, the villain Alexander Davis bought her. Once at the plantation, the slave doctor checked her and told Davis that Marian would give birth in a few hours and that both would die. It was inevitable. The man could not have cared less. He told her that he had paid very little, but that he would try to save his investment anyway. And then that he would go home and have a brandy with them. 20 field security men were celebrating that they had caught the damn, my God, one of the strongest slaves in just 8 hours. The doctor smiled, scoffed, and said these superstitious wretches always escape upstream even though no one tries it anymore. They've already learned what happens to them. And he promised that after attending the birth, he would go have that drink. Neither of them seemed to be bothered by the young woman's screams for water. In fact, they barely started when the contractions did. Davis arrived with a red-hot iron with which he branded all the animals and slaves he owned, and he pressed it against her belly, and thus our protagonist was born. Amidst the screams of horror from his mother, this world received him with a hot iron on his back, which marked him in a second and made him cry for days. Marian died within a few hours, but against all odds, the baby survived. They didn't name him because the master had forbidden it. He liked to name the boys born on his lands. Why? Because the brute would wait until they were 4 years old and first examine their physical condition. Only then would he decide. And if he named them after a fruit or a plant, it meant that they would work from that age until death in the fields. He wasn't very original or bright, so the plantation was full of children and young people named Cotton Orange, Peaches, etc. But our protagonist was quite different. He was so giant and heavy that at 4 years old, he already looked like a 10-year-old boy. And precisely the big ones were the master's favorites, and not for the better. He raised the strongest ones in a much harsher way. If that was even possible, he did it to make them tougher and withstand whatever came. That way, they could work all day as lumberjacks, builders, carpenters, and if he managed to mistreat them enough as if they were fighting dogs, the infamous man thought he could sell them as Mandinga fighters, and everyone knew that in those fights the stakes were high and they paid well for a pound of flesh. He was so heartless with these big kids that to give them a name, he would first hit them with all his strength on the back with a stick, and then he would call them the same as the first thing they screamed upon receiving the brutal lash. Our protagonist was then called Nonó because when Davis hit him, that 4-year-old angel said, "No, no, please, sir, it hurts. No, no, please, sir." And he began to cry inconsolably. The master was surprised by his size. So he decided to give Nonó a special treatment, and that of course meant more punishments, more torments, and more frequently. When Nonó turned 10 years old, it had become very clear to Davis that the boy had a serious mental problem, and of the worst kind to his interests, because contrary to what his ruthless master required, it seemed that Nonó was only willing to embrace, cheer, console, and give or share what little he had with those who were suffering. Even his greatest amusement was to smile at butterflies and wave at them as they flew by. Nonó's enormous body was full of deep marks from punishments, but his soul was as pure as the water from the spring that was born upstream. But Davis, far from being moved by the boy's absolute innocence, did not stop beating him, burning him with hot water, or hanging him by the arms, and he did all this in the hope of making him brave for the fight. However, all he achieved was making the boy cry and repeat, "No, no, ma'am, please." When they finally let him go, the pain and fear were strongly reflected in his gaze. But there was no sign of hatred or revenge. At 14 years old, they caged him, and no matter how much they tried to teach him to fight, the boy didn't want to. If someone approached to hit him, the first thing Nonó would do was try to hug them affectionately. Then he would receive the punch in the middle of his face and start crying because he didn't understand what he had done wrong for them to be so cruel to him. In his mind, free of malice, he dreamed of a caress, a gesture of kindness, but everyone seemed to want to hurt him. Everyone except Pascuala, a newly purchased mulatto girl who was assigned to the master's kitchen. Davis and his group of 20 armed employees who kept the slaves terrified. But she would sneak out of the house at night to bring him some bread and fresh water. She would pass her little hand through the bars and comfort Nonó when he was hurt. A year later, things got worse. He was already the tallest and most corpulent man in the entire state, and probably one of the largest that Alexander Davis had ever known. So he, had an idea. It was clear that he would never be a ruthless killer, but if he could make it look good, Bravo could sell it for a good sum of money to the circus as an attraction. On the other hand, he had discovered that Pascuala and he were close, so the dam used her as bait. He deceived her by telling her that he was going to release Nonó from the cage, that he was sorry for all the pain he had caused her, and he asked the girl to bake a cake, and by night, he could invite Nonó to the house's kitchen to eat it. Pascuala had never been so happy. She made the cake in an amazing and beautiful butterfly shape. The rest of the cooks applauded her. At night, Davis arrived with the doctor and 5 of his guards. He gave the cage key to Pascuala and told her to go look for Nonó, and then they could go to the kitchen to eat cake. The girl opened the bars, woke up Nonó, and told him, "Today is the happiest day of my life. Will we eat a cake together?" Nonó interjected, astonished. "Cake?" "Yes, and they will let us save some for the other children." And he began to jump for joy just imagining it. But Pascuala calmed him down with a smile and told him the best is yet to come, because I baked the cake especially for you and shaped like what you most like to see and greet in this world. Nonó opened his eyes and, crying with joy, guessed, "A butterfly cake?" And they both went laughing hand in hand to the house. On the table of that huge kitchen was the cake. With both hands on his heart, whether from the joy they felt or not, he entered happy and content. He entered without suspecting anything. As soon as he crossed the door, 3 thick ropes held him by the neck and arms. Pascualita screamed, "No! Why are they doing this to him?" In the most heartbreaking way a girl can scream, and she didn't do it because she felt foolish for having believed Davis. She didn't do it because of the surprise. She didn't scream like that because she saw a huge sadness in Nonó's eyes. The kind that those who feel betrayed and don't understand why have. One of the thugs grabbed the girl by the hair. Then for the first time, they saw Nonó react. Instead of accepting the punishment with pain and resignation, as he always did, seeing Pascuala in danger, he walked up to her, dragging them all along. And then Alexander pulled out his knife and put it to the little girl's neck while saying, "Calm down, Nonó, calm down." And the good slave obeyed, begging, "Not to hurt Pascuala, not to hurt Pascuala, whether they hurt or not, whether they hurt or not, but not to hurt Pascuala." They tied him to the heavy table and locked the girl in a pantry. Why did they hold him tightly inside the house? Well, because the doctor had requested it, as under no circumstances would he do. Inside that cage and in view of the other slaves, such an operation, I tell you. That son of a bitch Davis wanted to disfigure him, make him look like a monster. He had even drawn different options for the doctor to execute with his scalpel on the face. If not, no, for what? To sell it as a phenomenon? They had already agreed on it for the sum of 4,000 payments. If he was as tall, ugly, and threatening as the damned one, he had promised the circus owner stellar performances. Nobody seemed to be moved by the screams that Nonó made when they cut him on the table from the forehead to the cheek, also taking out one of his eyes. But the other slaves began to approach the house and asked angrily if those screams were from good old Nonó. But they couldn't do much. A few warning shots and the presence of the hounds were enough. Those hellish dogs, experts in hunting down anyone who dared to escape upriver, were more frightening than death itself. When they finished, it really looked like a monster. Davis was satisfied, and they put him back in the filthy cage without even giving him a bit of water. As soon as they left him alone, Pascuala knelt by his side, apologized to him, and told him to pay attention. Nonó lifted his exhausted head, and she screamed in horror at seeing him so hurt, and crying, she told him, "What they have done to you today, my dear Nonó, look. What they've done to you because of me. I'm going to run away. Do you have the strength to come with me?" Nonó shook his head from side to side and almost lost consciousness. Pascuala shouted at him, "Listen to me carefully. I still have the key to the cage. I will leave it open. Listen, I will go downstream. They will never look for me. Because there behind the red trees begins Huecubu Mapu, the devil's country, and no one enters there, not even the water tribes dare to do it.
And I swear to you, my friend, that even if the one who walks behind the tall grass catches me and drags me to hell, I will be happy not to die here."
Now don't faint and listen to me well. You have a few hours to recover. When they realize that I'm not inside the pantry, when they notice that I escaped through the high window and fled from the plantation, they will come looking for me with dogs and will go upstream, where those who escape always go. You wait until they are out of sight and run to the other side to Huecubu Mapu, there past the red trees. I will wait for you and we can go to the fields of the Terra Nova, where I heard they treat slaves well. In the mid-morning, the noise of the dogs woke up. No, the pain I felt was terrible. With the eye he had left, he saw them rush up the river and realized that it had not been a dream. Despite the fact that the hounds wanted to go down, Davis and his men, weapons in hand, led them to where everyone always fled and no one got too far. Then he waited a few minutes, timidly opened the door that Pascuala had left unlocked, and as badly injured as he was, he sped off towards the red trees he saw far in the distance, almost at the end of the immense valley. He crossed them at sunset. Along the way, he found a white shawl and some butterfly drawings that Pascuala had thrown to mark the path. He entered the high pastures at night, and there he saw a large dry tree and the girl waving her hand. They both hugged, and the little one just kept repeating, "Forgive me, Nonó, forgive me. I just thought we would eat cake. Look at what they've done to you. We must hurry, we are in danger." Nonó began to tremble and said, "Butterfly," pointing up and behind Pascuala. But the girl found no sign of happiness in her friend upon seeing a butterfly. Even that had stolen his greatest joy, and he asked her for forgiveness again. But Nonó didn't lose the color in his face. When pointing, he said, "Butterfly, ah." Pascual turned her around and he saw it. There it was. Lucifer in all his magnitude, with beastly wings spread and 4 meters tall. His black and red armor matched the pointed beard and the lit eyes. Both ran to take shelter under the tree, and when they turned around, Lucifer had disappeared. They breathed heavily and wanted to run further south, but they ran into him head-on. Now he seemed more human. He was dressed in a fine black suit, wide-brimmed hat, and boots with silver spurs. He pointed to the girl and asked, "Do you know who I am?" "Say my name." "You are Huecubu." Lucifer nodded with her head, and the girl, trembling, bowed to her. Then she pointed to Nonó and ordered him to say my name, Pascuala. She whispered to him quietly, "Say Huecubu," but Nonó was so scared that he said, "Bad eagle butterfly." Lucifer lit up her eyes, and pointing the way they had come, she told them, "This is Huecubu Mapu, my country. The place that God has given me and where He allows me to stop being Satan and be whoever I want to be. So here I choose to be Lucifer, and I choose not to be bothered." And making the silver spurs sound while taking heavy steps, he walked from side to side like a puma and shouted at them, "Now go back the way you came, or you will suffer like never before." In the distance, the barking of the hounds could be heard. This time they heeded them, and Davis and his men would soon find them. Pascual shouted, "No, if I return they will hang me from the trees and the dogs will eat my feet, just like they did with Oh My God and No, they're not going to sell it at that circus. Let us continue in that direction. I promise we won't bring pro." But Lucifer lost patience and ordered them, saying, "Sleep." And the girl fell to the ground instantly. Nonó thought that Lucifer had hurt her and wanted to cover her by standing in front of her. But the wounds and the effort finally overcame him, and he fell to the ground with a great crash. The Infernal knew there was something different about that giant. He shook him to wake him up, but upon touching him, he felt a tremendous pain in his heart. Then he put his hand on Nonó's forehead. Lucifer absorbed all of the young man's suffering. He could feel his innocence, his sanctity, and everything those damned had done to him. Every blow, every humiliation and torture he released immediately. He immediately realized that something strange was happening to him. He touched his cheeks and found thick, crystalline tears that wouldn't stop sprouting in the face of such injustice. And distressed as never before, he saw no one else, fell to his knees and embraced Nonó, who lay next to Pascuala. The girl comes to her senses and interrupts with a scream when she sees the bright eyes of the two hounds that are running towards her to catch her. That's what they're trained for. They run mercilessly and are inches away from biting her. But Lucifer dried her tears and ordered them in perfect German Bleib calm set dich, which means stay calm sit. And the hounds stopped instantly and just in time. Then they go towards him, wagging their tails, and sit at his feet. Pascuala points to Nonó and asks him, "What's wrong with you? Why are you breathing like that? Why do you look like you're asleep?" Lucifer responds, "Your friend will die soon, only my father can save him now, and he doesn't come around here very often. But don't worry, Nonó will go straight to meet him. I can't believe what they've done to him." And with eyes filled with tears, she saw Nonó breathe for the last time again. He took Pascuala's hand and he passed away. No, as Lucifer had said, the soul and spirit of the suffering Nonó came out of him in the form of 1,000,000 bright butterflies. And after fluttering near the girl, they flew straight to the stars. Pascuala cried out in despair. The infernal one adjusted his hat, lent the girl his handkerchief, and said, "There's nothing more you can do here. You keep heading south. After the waters, you will find a tribe that will come out to meet you. Don't let them get close. Shout at them and they will let you pass. At dawn, you will arrive at the fields of the Terra Nova and Parkins." Pascuala couldn't stop crying for her dead friend, and Lucifer told her to leave. And pointing to where the torches of the men were coming from, he repeated, "Leave, I have matters to attend to." And turning his eyes red, he said to the dogs, "Fup." And they walked with him through the tall grasses. The silver spurs rang in time with the heavy steps. "Who among you is Davis?" he asked when he had them face to face. The infamous one felt safe behind the weapons and raised his hand confidently. Pascual heard the distant screams of terror that indicate justice. The growling of the dogs, the gunshots, the horrifying noises of bones crunching, and the screams. And please, and more please, and please, and screams, and 20 minutes later, no one was screaming anymore. Then he came out of the tall grass again without a single stain on his fine clothes. One of the dogs was carrying Davis's arm and the other part of the head, but they started to growl. They noticed there was something behind the tree. Lucifer pointed a finger at the one standing next to the girl and shouted, "Brother Gabriel, you shouldn't be here!" The Archangel Gabriel, in radiant golden armor, approached, placed a hand on his shoulder and said, "Brother Lucifer, among all, my favorite and the one who carries the heaviest task. Out of infinite love for our Father, he continues to show men the path that takes them away from the Father and allows them to choose. That is your task, but I find you here destroying men." Lucifer rested his forehead on Gabriel's and cried as he spoke through clenched teeth. Man, don't you know what they did to him? I swear I will put 3 legions to torture them for all eternity in hell. Gabriel was about to reprimand him gently, but Pascuala began to beat his armor and yell at him while pointing at Nonó's body. Revive him, doesn't God send you? Revive him? The archangel took pity on her. But Lucifer asked him, "Do you really want that? It's because you don't know the truth. If you saw the reward of those who are like the children of the pure of heart, I promise you would never want him to return. Here, where men are capable of doing this to each other." The girl wanted to think that it was so. She really wished it, but shaking her head from side to side, she lamented, saying distressed, "At least I would have liked to say goodbye, to tell him that I will always carry him in my heart." Gabriel and Lucifer looked at each other and nodded. They whispered a prayer in a strange language, probably Enochian. And suddenly the winds stirred. Both smiled and pointed to the horizon. They winked at Pascual, who turned around, spun with emotion, and fell to his knees, raising his arms to the sky. In front of her was Nonó like another angel, with beautiful golden wings, waving his hand at the girl as he spun in the air, shouting, "Look, my friend, God has also given me cake. All the cake I want to eat, and he gifted me these wings. Look, nothing hurts anymore, friend. There are no cages in heaven and nothing hurts anymore." Pascuala cried and laughed with happiness. She knew that the meeting was a farewell. So he began to chase his friend, running from one side to the other, while no, he was not soaring through the air in fun pirouettes. They were playing together for the last time, like children happy for the first time. "No, right?" he said. "Guess what I am, friend? Guess what I am?" And flying like a butterfly, he stood in front of the girl and hugged her. And Pascuala, crying, said to him, "I know what you are, friend, you are free."